Hey everyone, welcome back. I am happy to see you all. For those of you who are watching live, for those of you who are listening in, I'm happy you're here. Today I have with me Renee Bauer. Renee and I have been connected on the socials and, in the divorce world for many, many years. And so I'm really excited to have her on the show. She is an award-winning divorce attorney. She's a published author. She's also the legal expert at My Next Chapter. Now, I did a podcast episode with Tamara and Sherry, who were the co-founders of My Next Chapter, and I told you all about that. We'll link that in the show notes in case you missed it. It's a really great platform, and Renee and I will talk about that. Um, and Renee is also the founder of Happy Even After Family Law in Connecticut, where she has spent over 2 decades helping people navigate divorce with dignity and confidence. You know, I love that. Renee is also a sought after speaker and advocate for reshaping how we think about divorce. Yes, not as a failure, but as a chance to rewrite your next chapter with intention. Renee, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kate. I'm excited to chat.
Me too. So, you've been a divorce attorney for over 20 years. And so
Yep.
you've kind of seen the industry change and shift. I'm assuming for possibly for better and maybe worse.
Depends on who's asking the question.
Yes. Say more.
So, when I started practicing forever ago, it seems like anyway, there was this very traditional model of uh they visitation schedules. We'll start with that, just the semantics of it. They were visitation schedules, and we saw a lot of traditional, like dads getting every other weekend and a dinner visit and an overnight. And there has been a huge shift to just the language that's used, where now it's parenting plans and not visitation. Just the language around that, but also what parenting plans look like and how time is divided. It used to be mom automatically had custody and dads had time, unless there was a reason not to have a situation like that. But
Mhm.
now you're starting off with the default is parents have shared parenting and shared custody. And then you tell the court why it shouldn't be that way. And you work from that middle and then go backwards. Like that's one of the big things. And dads are no longer that parent that is off to work and coming home spending time on the weekends. And dads are really an integral part of
Yeah.
raising their kids. There's always circumstances, and there's plenty of those cases where it's flip flops, or it's not like that, or there's a reason for one parent or the other to not have that. But we're just talking about, like, generally speaking,
Sure.
overarching big change, as well as alimony, which we can talk about too.
Oh, yes. But it's interesting that like even in 20 years, I mean, in my world, in my brain, 20 years ago was still like 1985, but apparently that's not true. Apparently, and I say that
I
as
hate
the,
when the math works out that way.
it's so annoying. I have a 20-year-old son too, so like I know exactly how long ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So right, like we're talking like this in this century. Um,
Yes.
and right, that like in this millennium, this has changed that much,
Yeah, that
right?
much.
Yeah,
And
fascinating.
for the better. So this is where your
Yeah,
question is, like, loaded, like, for better or worse. Well, it depends. If you
yeah.
ask the parent who wants to hold on to that parenting time and wants the majority and wants that physical designation, then in their perspective, it's changed for the worse. If you ask the parent who says, "Listen, I want to be as involved as possible in my child's life," then it's changed for the better. So it's
Mhm.
perspective, like anything else.
Yes. And so, what do you say to, let's say, somebody who comes to you, a stay-at-home mom who comes to you and says, look, he's a good dad, no doubt about it, but he's not here. He's at work 60, 80 hours a week. Um, but the court is going to say We're going to default to 50-50. Um, why should I have to uproot my children's lives? I mean, so, there's this, well, let me start. Let's start there and then I'll go into
Yeah.
my other thoughts
And
on this.
so let's say that that is true. Like, let's say that this person is working 80 hours a week and nothing is going to change, and they're not willing to make anything change in their schedule, and they still travel a lot. Or maybe they're taking the train into New York City every day, and it's a 2 hour commute in and a 2 hour commute home. Chances are it's not going to be that shared parenting plan because you can't do it. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
But if this same person says, hold up a second, I worked that many hours because that was our family structure, that was our agreement. My wife stayed home, but now things are different. And I went to my boss, and my boss says I can work from home 2 days a week and I don't have to travel as much. I want to be involved, and the court's going to give them
Yeah.
every opportunity to be involved. So, what happened as an intact family sometimes changes up, and sometimes people resist that. And so, that person
Yeah.
who says, well, it's always been that way, so it should always continue that way, it really depends on how that other person feels about that situation. And if they're going to step further into that role as parent and just not allow the default parent to be that one person, are they really going to be helping with activities in school meetings, teacher meetings, and doctor's appointments? If they are, there's no reason for it not to be shared. If they're not, then you're probably going back to one of those more traditional parenting plans where dad is getting that or that parent who's the workaholic is getting that parenting time when they can fit it in, or when there are gaps in their work schedule. And you're going to really have a custodial parent who's still doing a lot of that. And then all of the financial orders trickle down, are impacted because of that decision as well.
Well, and that's where, right? That's what I was going to say, that then you deal with, I mean, I rarely see situations that are that black and white, right? I most often will see, and probably because I deal with mostly higher conflict divorces, um, just because that's what I get. And I think there are probably more of those these days than not. But I do feel like the the parent who has been the higher income earner, the worker, the workaholic, all of that, usually says like, "Oh no, I'm totally going to do it. Like I demand 50-50, right? I demand
And then they don't.
50-50." And then they literally, well,
They,
they do not have the right. What do you say to clients who are like, "I know this isn't going to happen"?
Well, so that's a great question because that does happen, and that happens
A lot.
frequently. What I always say is to the parent, to both of them, let's start this now before the divorce is finalized. Let's put it into practice to see if you can actually do this. And
Same,
it
same.
could be that the couple's already living apart and then they're doing it. But even if you're living together, you can still do it. And one parent, though, has to say, hands off. Not I. It is not my day to do all of the things, and stick to that, which is really hard for some people, so that the other parent then can step in and do that. And now you're going to start to see, is this actually possible? Is that person actually making the effort to be there? And that's going to tell you everything about what you need to know about the parenting plan you're going to write up and sign off on for your final
Oh,
divorce.
this is one of I'm so glad you said that, Renee, because I give the same advice all the time. This is part of why I don't want you rushing into whatever, rushing to file, rushing to get your parenting plan worked out, rushing to do all this. Let the dust settle so that you can see what's actually going to happen, because then and then keep track. Keep a calendar. Keep
Mhm.
keep very clear documentation of what is actually happening, because you don't want to agree to a 50-50 split and then have to go and ask for modification of support, ask for, because this isn't, or, even a custody schedule because it's not happening. So take the time, allow the space to see if this is actually realistic.
1,000%. And keep in mind that sometimes people will say that they want the 50-50 because they want a deviation for child support.
Hmm.
And sometimes people truly want the time with their kids, and that's not their
That's right.
motive at all. And it's, we can't say which is more likely to happen in your situation, because you know your ex and you know your situation better than anyone. But if you're in that circumstance where you have the spouse who just wants the break on child support, doing that temporary plan will sort of shake out what's going to happen. And sometimes the child support guidelines don't change even if you have a shared plan too, which is also a really important reason why you should be consulting with a lawyer. Don't sign off on anything. Make sure you understand the laws in your state, because there's case
Yep.
law and there's guidelines that really tell you what's supposed to happen in situations when it's shared. When you can deviate, when you can't, because there are laws that say you can't deviate in certain circumstances. So really, really understanding, just because you know someone in a different state who did something and it is giving you advice doesn't necessarily mean that applies to your case.
Say more about states where you can't deviate, you can't modify. Is that what you're saying?
You can always modify. So
Okay.
you can always
Yeah.
modify anything. You're spot on, Kate, with if something changes and you have to go back to court, and it may open for post judgment, and you don't want to do that. Like, figure it out
It's
now. But
yeah.
but there are rules on child support guidelines. And so in my
Right.
state in Connecticut, there was a case that came down from the Supreme Court, and it said that the higher income earner always pays child support to the lower income earner, and there's no deviation. And then they
Hmm.
said, well, maybe there could be a deviation, but you have to say this and you have to show this. And it gave all of these kind of hoops to jump through in order to get there. And so if and that's only if you agree. If the judge hears the case, they can't actually deviate if you have a higher income earner. So, and my point is, without getting lost in the weeds, is that every state has different rules, different statutes, different guidelines, different case law that comes
Right.
out. So you really want to be sure that you're paying attention to what's happening in your state, and making sure that what you agree to is, you're not giving away everything, because you might agree to something that, had you gone in front of a judge, you could get a far better deal. And court judges like to enter agreements. They don't like to mess up agreements that people have, so they could sign
Hmm.
off on something that they
Yeah.
would not necessarily do if you ask the judge to make the decision. So take it upon yourself to educate yourself, to inform yourself, to make sure you're consulting with people, not friends, professionals,
Yes.
experts, people who kind of live in this space, to make sure that when you sign something, you know exactly what you're signing, what it means, what you were entitled to. If you're signing away a right to something, why you're doing it. And not just saying, well, someone told me that this is the way it is, or my ex told me if it's shared custody, I automatically don't get support.
Oh my God. Right. Yes. Please educate yourself. I can't stress it enough. First of all, there's so much information on the internet now, like
Yeah,
so much. Don't rely on ChatGPT for this information because it may not be right. But if you Google something like divorce laws in my state, there is so much information. Almost every law firm has a blog now. There is just so much information, and I don't want anyone to go into this process not educated. So, yeah, and then there's something else that you said about shit, what was it? Hold on. Pause.
alimony.
Pause, cut.
That's a word.
Oh, yeah, we can talk about that too. There was something else before that. Oh, I know what it was. There's something else that that I always tell my clients that I wanted to sort of run by you, right? Is that if someone is fighting for 50-50, but you know they're not going to exercise 50-50, and the main concern is not financial in the short term. If the
Okay.
main concern is your children's safety, your children's like emotional safety, whatever it is, if it's physical safety, fight like hell. Do not
Right.
sign
Right.
50-50. But if there is, if it's one of those things where like the kids don't like going to his house, they, and the primary concern is not if you know they're going to fade out and not exercise it, and the support is like the difference might be negligible, right? Everyone thinks like there's this huge amount difference in child support from like 80% to 50%. And often, like, yeah, sure, if there's a lot of money, maybe there is, but often it's not that much different. I'll sometimes say like, you know what? Go ahead and sign it. If you think he's going to fade out, go for the 50-50 and just know that you could file for modification of support later if you need to, if you have full, well-documented evidence that they're not showing up. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you completely. So if you don't have a really good reason not to accept the 50-50, except for I don't think that my ex is going to meet their end of the bargain, but they haven't given you any reason to show that they won't, and it's sort of a let's see and happen, a wait and see, sign it. Because then you can go back to court, document things, so keep track of everything every time that they've missed or that they're late, or just keep track of all of it. Now, you're not going to run back to court in the first 3 weeks.
No.
I'm going to say
Yeah.
you're going to give it a good 6 months, right, of having this person not do what they're supposed to do before you then say, okay, there's a substantial change in circumstances. My ex has not fulfilled their parenting time a majority of the time. Here's every date that they missed or they wanted to switch. And now I'd like to open it up, ask for support, because now I have the financial hit from it. It's not
That's
just
right.
I more time with the kids, it's you have to feed them
Feed
more.
them.
You have, right?
Right.
Like they leave the lights on around the house more. Like
They
they,
fill every glass with water and then leave
right.
it.
Oh yeah. They eat more snacks, like all of it. So it actually there was a financial impact. And then you do that. So important to keep track of it and not just run and file within the first, like if you file in 2 months after the divorce, the judge is going to get really annoyed. And we're
That's right.
talking not a safety issue. Like we're just talking someone's not fulfilling their parenting time. But the
Right.
judge is going to be like, all right, you guys just got divorced. What are you doing back here? Six
Right.
months in, 8 months, a year, something like that. I think that you have enough data to then go and say, okay, I have tracked all of this and now I have a reason that I'm filing.
Yep. I'm glad you agree with that because people get really freaked out about it, but sometimes it works itself out over
Yeah.
time. You know. Um, so
And then sometimes people
yeah.
are pleasantly surprised that their ex steps up to the plate and actually is a really good co-parent. And that's like, hey, this is working.
That is the best. Yes. And
Yeah.
one thing you said earlier that I wanted to come back to because I think it's really important is that first of all, create an in-home parenting plan before you start anything. Most people with children have to end up living together for some period of time before they are able to separate. So create an in-home parenting plan where you are allowing, and what you said was great, like allow them the dignity of learning how to do shit. Because if you're constantly doing everything for them, they're never going to learn how to do it. This is the perfect opportunity for them to learn, right?
Yeah.
When you're living together. But sometimes it's really hard for us, especially as moms, especially women, to like
Yep.
just take our hands off and let it happen. Right?
And not just let them do it, but let them do it imperfectly and not the way that you would do it. And
100%.
just because that you don't agree with how they're doing something or their choice for dinner, let's say, when you get divorced, at some point we just have to step back and say they're going to parent the way that. Now, again, we're assuming we're not making safety or major decisions, but we're talking about the little
Right.
stuff that might drive me crazy because I'm a control freak, but it's not harming your child. It's
That's
not
right.
dangerous. It's not, I mean, we're just talking about those little day-to-day things. And that's really, really hard for someone who's always been the primary person doing all of that. So that's a
Yeah.
big, big adjustment to make.
And I've had to talk to my clients about this, right? Giving up control, just like really staying out of it. And the things that they think are so important,
Yeah.
right? I have to say like but really how he makes the scrambled eggs is not like it's
Right.
not that important. It
Right.
feels
And
like it
it's
when they're
not,
your babies and all,
right.
but yeah.
It's not what kids remember. They remember they don't even remember because we have people who get so hung up on, let's say, like a birthday. And it's a birthday and both want substantial time. your child is not going to remember how many hours they spent with each parent on their birthday, but they're going to remember maybe a moment or experience around that. So if one parent is taking your child out on a Saturday, which happens to be the day before the actual birthday, do you think that they're going to remember that it didn't happen on their birthday? Of course not. They're going to remember they had a great time with mom and they went to the museum and they did this and they had chicken
Mhm.
nuggets, and that those are the moments that kids remember. The kids don't remember those little details that kind of make us crazy from as parents, and the guilt, right? The guilt of like, oh, I'm not with my child on this particular day, and it means more to us than it actually means to them. So sometimes just putting yourself in the shoes of your child to say, okay, what am I trying to create for my child, and does it matter? Do the hours, do the days, does that matter? Are you trying to create moments and memories? And those are the things when you have a 20-year-old, they look back at their childhood and that's what they remember, not
Yep.
a date.
No, absolutely. And sometimes they remember stuff that you're like, you created something magical and they don't
Yeah,
remember it. And you're like, well, shit.
right. Right. That happens too.
I always tell the story of when I told my son, like, we spent like hours and days talking to specialists about how to tell our son that we were getting divorced. And, we did it, we did it right. We did it,
Mhm.
we scripted things, we did the timing, like all of the things. And all he remembers is, I don't know, like all I remember is you told me to get a box and pack some of my things to take over to a new house. And I was like, okay, that's literally not what happened. That's like literally not how it went. Like
How old was he?
he was 3,
Yeah. Oh
he
yeah, my
was
son was
3.
2. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And like literally what the box was we're going to go to the new house. We'd already talked
Mhm.
about the divorce and the separation and there's a new house and, you can take whatever you want, like giving him agency and you can take whatever you
Right.
want to. And so like if you want, like here's a box and we can take some new toys, some of our toys over to the new house, right? That's not what he remembers.
Of course not. Of course not. And then as they get to be teenagers, I think it's really funny too, is what happens with like parenting plans and custody. Because the
Oh,
only one who has custody, if you have, I'd say anyone from 13 and above is like their friends.
oh,
And
100%.
my son used to, as soon as he got his license, this is how custody was determined in my house. He would group text my ex and I what's for dinner to both of us, depending on how each of us answered, that's where he would choose to go that night. So I
Oh,
knew,
little shit.
right? I knew if there was salmon, he was showing up at my house. And or if there was like, hey, we're gonna do takeout, he's showing up. But that's how, totally little shit. Like that's how he determined where he was going. So it's not personal anymore. It's not even
It's
about the
so not.
parent. So we have to, and I think it's hard as parents to let go of like, oh, but I haven't seen you in 2 days. You think that your
They
17-year-old is thinking about that? They are not.
they do not care. They do
Yeah.
not care. I mean, they do, right? They do,
Right.
but also like because they know you're always going to be there, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, it's so true. Speaking of parenting plans, um, what are your thoughts on how granular versus loosey-goosey? Like, I have thoughts on this, but I'm curious about yours and
Yeah.
like what should be in a parenting plan?
Okay. So to the first question, it depends. Every lawyer's famous like phrase, it
Mm-hmm.
depends.
Mm-hmm.
That's our non-committal way of not committing to an answer. But it truly depends. I have done parenting plans that are 2 pages long, and I have done parenting plans that are 50 pages long. It
Ooh,
depends on the level of conflict. It depends on the people involved. Some people can be really open and flexible, and they truly want what's best for their child, and they're able to recognize that the other parent is a good parent, and they said we want to keep it open-ended and we want to be flexible with each other. A lot of times those are the people who mediate, and
yeah,
they come in and their custody is not an issue and there aren't safety concerns and we don't have substance abuse or anything like that.
yep,
So the other flip of that is the really long parenting plans that are absolutely necessary when you have someone who, sometimes there's mental illness involved.
yeah,
Sometimes we hear the word narcissism used a lot, but some people have,
It's true.
tendencies or
Sure.
characteristics or other types of things that require, like, the conflict is so high that everything needs to be mapped out as much as
Mhm.
possible. So it's going to be, who's your ex, who are they, and who are the two of you together, and how you communicate, and which one do you need. Most people fall somewhere in the middle.
Mhm.
It may maybe not quite 25 pages, but usually end up with a few pages, 5 pages, because they have holiday schedules in there. um,
Mhm.
but the goal is to probably put more in there than you need and to never look at it again. That's a
That's
win.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I recently got out my divorce papers and I was like, what's in my parenting plan? Like, I feel like we
Yeah.
didn't talk about anything. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Oh, we put that in there? Huh. I mean, because
Yeah.
we were able to be so flexible with each other that it
Right.
just didn't matter. Um, and I tell my clients, put like you said, like put more in than possibly you think you're going to need. I have heard my clients say, "Well, my attorney says that that's not enforceable, so we shouldn't put it in the parenting plan." To which, yeah,
Yeah. I
uh-huh.
sigh.
Yes, yeah. So my response
Yes.
to that is, look, you're not going to take your ex to court if he introduces a new partner when they've been dating for 2 months, not 6 months. Like, no, it's not enforceable, but it's a conversation you had and agreed on and signed off
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
right?
It gives everyone guidelines to follow, and it at least says, okay, we're supposed to be doing this in theory. And there's
Hmm.
always, like, I had a case recently, and that we went to court, and it was, I call it like the death by a thousand cuts case, because
Yes.
nothing was big enough to actually go back to court. All of the little things drove my client crazy. And ultimately,
Yeah.
we went to court, and the judge is like, what do you want me to do about this? Because not enforceable. Like, what are you
Yeah.
going to do if someone violates the introduction to the new significant other? The judge really can't do anything
Can't do
about that, or
anything.
isn't going to, right? It's like it's a slap on the wrist. Make sure you follow your parenting plan next. So
Right.
there's truth to not enforceable, until sometimes it is. Sometimes those little things might mount to something so large that you go to court, and the judge is like, well, this is a big deal. This is, so for example, moving, relocating, or moving to,
Yeah.
I had a case where the wife mom moved really far away, stayed in the state, but moved far enough that the parenting plan was really no longer feasible.
Oh.
So she didn't violate anything, actually. Did the agreement said she could move anywhere as long as she didn't leave the state, and she did that. But now they have a 50-mile difference between houses. So something
Yeah.
had to be done, even though she technically didn't do anything wrong. So you have certain circumstances like that. But
Yeah.
to your point, put it all in, because at least it gives everyone the toolbox of, here are all the things we're supposed to be having a conversation about, and let's hope that everyone actually does that,
Hmm.
and plays nice. But it's at least, it's almost like co-parent counseling to some extent. To get to the point where that paragraph is in the agreement, there had to be that conversation. So
That's right.
it's
Right.
like, all right, before we launch as co-parents in separate houses, let's see if we can get on the same page about how we're going to parent our child.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Right. Let's just like talk it all through, put it on
Yeah.
paper. We're signing it, knowing most of it's not legally enforceable, but that doesn't mean we don't have conversations because we're parents.
Right.
We're co-parents. Ah. So I want
I
to
know.
shift gears a little bit. I want to come back to all of this other stuff too, but I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about my next chapter, because they have a really robust legal resources, right, that you have helped to shape. So there's a lot of online divorce platforms or support groups or whatever. So what makes this different?
So, I'll use my own divorce course that I created. That was just my perspective as legal, right? So,
Hmm.
someone were to, it's shut down and not offered anymore. But it was just one perspective. What my next chapter does is it brings in everyone else into the conversation. It brings in not just the lawyer, it brings in your financial expert, it brings in your mental health expert, it brings in your co-parenting. So you're bringing together a team of people who
Mm-hmm.
may be part of the divorce process and putting them all under one roof and giving you all of those resources. So like you said, is that there's so much out there, but you have to go digging, and you get a little bit of
Right.
this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this. And my next chapter, why I signed on and why I love it, is because it really gives really
Mm-hmm.
good quality, well vetted information to people going through the process. And let's face it, divorce is really, really expensive for some people. And one of the things I tell people is, just because you hire a lawyer, don't expect your lawyer to educate you, inform you. Like, sometimes you have to take ownership of the process. Even if you have a lawyer, you have to educate
Yes.
yourself. You have to read up. You have to understand your budget. You have to know. You don't know what you don't know until it smacks you in the face. And this is an opportunity, whether you're getting a lawyer or not, to really start consuming all of the content that you need in order to make the decision from who to hire. Do I
Yeah.
need a financial person? Do I need someone valuing a business? Do I actually need a lawyer? What are my options? And it gives
Mm-hmm.
you everything under one roof. And they did a great job of really pulling together, in my opinion, high quality people with integrity doing the work for the right reason and trying to give people really good information.
Yes. Agree. I mean, we're a little biased because we are
You're not
so
biased.
because we're
Totally biased.
involved. Right. But
Right.
I mean, look, I think that, your decades of legal experience, my, decades of, work in this divorce space and relationship coaching, like we are, and then you've got Mariana Strongin, we've got really, really good people contributing really top-notch information. And just for people who are not familiar, it's it is a free content and community platform that has all of these experts helping. You can download videos, you can download worksheets and all sorts of stuff. And then there is, if you want a personalized, uh, more personalized guidance, there is a premium level membership that includes one-on-one coaching that I have helped frame, and access to legal experts and financial experts and all of that. For now, you get all of that in the free version. But if you want one-on-one people talking about specifically helping you through your case, and it's $99 a month, which is
It's crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and if you use, I have a code, which is DSG. It's always DSG, guys. You can get your first month for $69. So it's a really, really great platform. And I'm certainly happy to be contributing to it. I know you are too, Renee. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about it?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, when Tamara and Cherry reached out to me, I was in my era of saying no to everything. And that email landed in my inbox and it gave me pause. And I'm like, well, let me just hop on a Zoom and find out more.
Yeah.
And once they pitched it, I'm like, I'm in, like, count me in. So, um, time is valuable, and this is something that I just thought was so worthy of what they were building. So,
Yep.
yeah, check it out.
I agree.
I mean, it's free. There's no risk,
Right. Try the
right?
free version. And if you're like, oh,
Right.
this is really good and these people are great, and actually I want to talk to that person,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
I mean,
def,
there's so many videos in there about
yeah.
parenting plans and budgeting and finances. Like, there's so much content in there, and you don't have to go like scrolling and hope the algorithm finds you in order to find more. It's
Right.
like
Right.
it's
It's
there.
right there. So good. So good. Um, okay, so let's go back to what do you wish more people knew before hiring a divorce attorney? Right? Because a lot of people are really like, I don't know, they're scared of you, I think.
Why, thank you. Um, so this is the part that it's so important that you pick somebody who is aligned with who you are and what you want out of the process. So not every divorce
Yes.
lawyer is created equal. Just because somebody referred you to somebody doesn't mean they're the right fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's Kate, there's a new show out now. I don't know if you caught the first episode called All's Fair, and it with
Uh-oh.
Kim
No.
Kardashian. Yeah. So it's all about a female law firm that are divorce lawyers, and their whole goal is to like create havoc and exert vengeance on their clients' exes.
Oh,
So,
Jesus Christ.
and I
Renee.
right, every divorce professional goes, oh God, everything that we worked for. So if you're trying to find a divorce lawyer who is like that, that's like, the typical pit bull, so to
Have
speak, even though my
fun.
pit bull's like sitting at my feet and wouldn't hurt a bird. But if that's what you're looking for, you're going to be so disappointed in the end result, because that person sold you a bill of sale that they can't actually cash in. So if they're telling you they can get you all of these things and they can do all of this for you, it just doesn't work that way. The
No.
court are not punitive. They're not there to punish. So make sure that when you hire someone, like you can trust this person to give you a straight up truth telling advice, not someone who's just going to yes you to death and promise you all of these things. So important to make sure you're having that conversation with the lawyer to say, okay, this is how I want this to play out. I want mediation, or I want to come to the table and try to resolve this. And you don't end up with the lawyer who starts filing motions and starts pouring gasoline on a fire that's already been sparked. And
Yep.
because what happens is it costs you a whole lot of money.
That's right.
But you know,
That's all you
it's
get.
all that happens.
That's all
It's
you
a
get is
whole
a
very
giant bill.
expensive.
That's
Yes.
right.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that has to happen. Sometimes you have a situation where it's just if someone's stealing money, or it's so they're it's unhealthy for the kids in terms of this other parent can't there's issues. Like sometimes you need that level of aggressiveness, but most cases don't need that. So make
Yep.
sure that you're really vetting that person. Ask them questions about how, and this is a big one, is how responsive are they? Are you going to email them and you don't hear from them for 2 or 3 weeks? Like that is unacceptable. In my mind, 48 hours is probably too long a response time. 24 hours is acceptable. You should be able to reach out to your lawyer and get a response, even if it's I'm really busy in court, but let's talk on this day. And that's a common complaint. Like this
That's
is why
right.
lawyers get
Yes.
grieved, is because
Yeah.
they don't respond to their clients.
A
That's why
hundred
we have a
percent.
bad rap.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, when you're meeting with an attorney, right? I think what you said is really important, that like they should be asking you what you want out of this process,
Yep.
right? And I think sometimes we don't know, right? I think sometimes the client just doesn't know. They're like, I don't know, like I know what I don't want. I don't want this to get really ugly
Yeah.
and expensive, but I don't know, right? Um, but you want somebody who is going to sort of probe that a little bit more, right? And if you want to mediate, are they willing to be your consulting attorney? You want a
Mhm.
consulting attorney. I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the fucking face,
Yeah.
Renee. If you were
Yep.
going to mediate, you have to have a consulting attorney. You have to have somebody who's helping you know what to mediate towards, first of all,
Yes.
um, and somebody who's going to give you legal advice, which is not your mediator, because they can only give you information, because they're a neutral. Um,
Supposed to be. They're supposed to be a neutral.
they're
It
supposed
doesn't
to be a
always happen.
neutral. It
Yeah.
doesn't always happen, and I'm not always mad about it
I
for
know.
my clients.
I know.
Like, when you get a mediator who can kind of see through the bullshit, and I'm not mad about that, but they are supposed to be a neutral.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, to your point, like I recently had a client who um spoke to an attorney, hired the attorney, didn't really know that. like mediation might be an option, or right, like she just, so the attorneys, like, you know, they just kind of start their process. And she sent her the draft of the filing, and it was so aggressive
Yeah.
that I was like, I don't think this is in line with what you are trying to achieve here. So it was
Mm-hmm.
immediately 100% custody, immediately,
Yeah.
full legal, full physical, like all of it. And like, yes, there are some issues and there are concerns and there are protections that need to be put in place for the children. But like, if you want to try to do this in the most amicable way possible, that's off the table when you start, when the first
Oh
filing
yeah.
is that aggressive, right? And that attorney obviously didn't ask her, like,
Yeah.
how do you want to do
Yeah.
this?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. And what it does is imagine being the other person receiving that paperwork. And then they go and lawyer up with another
100%.
aggressive lawyer. And now the two of you just probably spent $5,000 in the first month
That's right. And
fighting
also, by the
motions
way,
and
as he should, right?
yeah,
Like, that is the appropriate way to respond to something that
right,
aggressive, right?
right.
So, like, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
You've now blown $10,000 of your children's,
Mhm.
what could have been, going into your
Yep.
children's 529s, and that's just the beginning.
And that's why it's so important to educate because had she known that there were other options, had she known like we can maybe look at collaborative or mediation, or maybe I want someone who's going to take a different approach, she might not have hired that lawyer. She may have looked at other, she may have hired someone
Yeah,
else. She may have
yeah,
had the conversation with
hmm,
her soon to be ex to be like, hey, what process do you want to use? We have options
that's
rather
right.
than both running out and lawyering up.
And look, I think, and this is why she has a divorce coach, because I was like, okay, push the brakes. That was a draft that was not filed. Here's the conversation you
Yeah.
need to have with her next. And if that's, and she's not going to, hear you, then let's, look for other options, right? So this is why kind of the importance of a team approach, because I do so much educating
Yeah.
about this while also not being able to, you know, uh, retain divorce law in 50 states in my brain.
Right.
Right.
Right. And and
Right.
and, and what your listeners have to remember is that most lawyers are overwhelmed with cases and they get a new file and it gets pushed to maybe a paralegal to do the drafting and they just become another number. So having someone else on your
Mm-hmm.
team who's actually listening and saying, let's have a goal setting session. Let's just spend a whole hour talking about what it is you want. Really, really important to have that. And some lawyers will do that with you, but having a divorce coach, having someone else on your side so that you get that clarity is so crucial to helping you navigate the whole process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Renee, how have you seen the court system evolving when it comes to co-parenting children? We talked about, like, it used to be that, the default was
Yeah.
dads get visitation and all of that. But how have you seen it over the years evolving?
So that, that's a big part of it. Let's talk about, because I've been chomping at the bit to talk about alimony, because I think it's a
Oh,
really important
yes. Sorry.
conversation to have, because that's a huge evolution too.
Yes, you're
And
right.
alimony is no longer the going to happen in every single case. So typically, so when I started 20 something years ago, alimony was like, okay, higher income earner pays alimony. It's just a given, regardless.
Yes.
That is not happening anymore. And courts are not doing, and I've talked to other lawyers in other states, and they're all saying the same thing. They're not doing lifetime alimony anymore. You
Mm-mm.
don't see it. Way
No.
back when lifetime alimony was a thing and it was a
Right.
common thing.
Yep.
And now it's changing. And the courts are using alimony to be rehabilitative, meaning that it's to
Yep.
give someone the time in order to get up on their feet, get recertified, find a job. And and of course it depends. If you're talking about a hedge fund person, that might be a different conversation, a very different conversation about alimony. Most of us don't live in that world. So we're going to
Uh-oh.
who are listening, and it's like maybe you stayed home for a period of time, and you're going to get alimony for a few years in order to get back on your feet and to set yourself up again. But it's not like the expectation that even half the length of the marriage is no longer the standard. And everyone loves to throw that term around, and judges are just not following that anymore. And that's a huge
Interesting.
disruption in how things used to be.
Interesting. Even in like California, where that is like it's actually written into, I think it's the law, the 50% of the duration of the marriage. Isn't
Oh,
that?
is it?
I'm pretty
I don't
sure
know
that's
in
like that is
California.
the statute in California. But in California, everyone says like, "Oh, stay married for 10 years and you get spousal support for life." And it's like, "No, no, no. Under 10 years, it's 50% of the duration of the marriage. Over 10 years, it's not specified." That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that doesn't mean it's for life. Um, but it is interesting. I talk to my clients about this all the time because they're like, well, we were married for 30 years, so I should get spousal support for life. I'm like, look, are you are you in your 60s? Are you
Yeah.
disabled? Are you right? Do you have chronic illness? Like these are the reasons that you might get it for life.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in your 40s and well, if you're in your 40s and married for 30 years, we have a problem, but you know what I mean. Um, um, but if you're in your 40s or even early 50s and you are capable and you are able and all of those things, there is an expectation that you're
Yeah.
gonna be able to support yourself at some point.
And lifetime usually is tied to your spouse's retirement. That's
Right.
really what that means too, is that it's lifetime or modifiable when your spouse retires, because how are they going to pay spousal support if they don't have income coming in? And sometimes
Exactly.
it's double dipping, because then someone will say, yeah, but they have their pension. Well, you already got half of the pension. So now you don't get more spousal support that's getting paid from their pension, because now then that means you're getting more of that asset.
You already did your quadro. You already have that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So interesting. Renee, I feel like we can talk about this forever. I love talking to you about this. Um uh is there anything else that you want to share that we didn't touch on? I know we got to the alimony eventually. I'm glad.
Yeah, yeah. No, in just the non-legal perspective is that the goal is to get on the other side of it and stand on your own 2 feet as quickly as possible. And if you're in a situation, and I know Kate, at one point you had a whole platform, and I think course on like, do you stay or do you go, right?
Oh
Like that
yeah, I
whole
still do.
premise, right?
Absolutely.
You
Yeah,
still
absolutely.
okay.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So right. So when someone comes to me and I just had this, the person came to me 10 years ago and their marriage was in a horrible place. Now they came to me again and their kids are off in college. I'm like, you just wasted 10 years of your life. So
Absolutely.
it's don't stay because of the kids, don't stay because you're waiting for something. If you know it's not going to work, like in your gut that this is over, it is done, and just pull the band-aid off. It's going to hurt now, it's going to hurt in 10 years, but at least if you do it now, you have the chance to move forward, find happiness, find love, find whatever it is that you're looking for. So don't wait, don't
That's
wait
right.
for that moment, for that perfect timing. It's never going to be there. And then when you're in the legal process, the goal should be, how do we get out of this? Get what you're entitled to, make sure you're educated and you're not giving everything away, but then let go, which is really, really hard. The resentment, the anger, the victimhood, and say, okay, because when you hold on to that stuff, you will never become the hero of your own story. You will never move forward. And the goal really is so that a year after your divorce, you can look up and say, wow, I never thought life would be this amazing. And look at me doing all of the things. Look at me cutting the lawn that I never even knew how to operate the lawnmower. And look at me,
Yep.
and it's scary as hell, but it's so worth it when you know that it's the right thing for you.
I love that, Renee. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. That's
Of
beautiful
course.
and so well said. Renee, where can everybody find you?
So is where I hang out, which is at
Mhm.
Ms. Renee Bauer. I'm there. Or if you're looking for the resources, you can go to My Next Chapter, and there's a whole bunch of videos of me talking about all kinds of legal stuff on there as well.
Awesome. And it's my next chapter is just mynextchapter.com, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And you can use the code DSG to get 60%, 30% off of your first month. If you wanted to do the paid version of it. Renee, it's so great to collaborate with you, to talk to you, and
Yes.
there will be more.
Of course, it's so good. So good to have this conversation, Kate. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Renee.